EVs coming and all that, are we actually in risk of going into blackout territory for many days here and there?
I love that. There's this assumption that everyone's going to come home and plug in at the same time and crash the network.
Yes.
That's what's going to happen. Are people really that dumb? No. And also...
We all flush it around 7 o'clock. You see the spike. Everybody makes a cup of tea at 6 to 7, watches the news, and then 15 minutes later go to the toilet.
Well, off a tangent, right? In England, when I was growing up, EastEnders was massive. Everyone watched EastEnders, right? And they always used to do this Christmas special of EastEnders. And I think it was the Christmas special. Well, anyway, there was there's one episode where something major happened, and everyone after the episode got up and made a cup of tea at the same time. And it nearly crashed the whole electricity system in the UK because everyone stuck the kettles on at the same time.
And that's what's going to happen
with EVs. But no, because funnily enough, when people get home at night, the cost of electricity is probably still in the peak period, which means it's going to be expensive.
The people don't care. They want a cup of tea and they want their EV charged.
No, but they do. Because
not my wife, or not many people's wives.
Your wife is the anomaly.
No, they're just going to go home, they open the garage, they put the car in, and they plug the EV charger. They have no awareness that they're now in the peak period for paying. What, you think they're going to go home, they're going to make the dinner and sit down, and then later go, oh, now it's a bit cheaper, I better turn the TV on. If that's not done automatic, it doesn't happen.
Because most people, a lot of people, have EV chargers that they then have a schedule on it. So they plug it in, yes, but it will be turning on to actually charge at 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning when it's cheap.
All right, I'll give you that.
Yeah. They won't, just because it's plugged in doesn't mean it's charging then. You plug it in, yes, but you've got a schedule on it. And a lot of people also are then, like with Amber, they'll plug the thing in, but then the VPP operator will be telling you when to charge your car. Or you have the systems, and there's a lot of these about, where you plug it in and then you'll actually be able to charge your car from excess solar. So, and that's why people don't plug it in and straight away it's going to be charging. It's actually scheduled and it's managed because that makes sense. You know, it's like people aren't that stupid, especially where the cost of electricity is so high. People are actually incentivized because of the cost of power to be a bit more savvy about how they use their energy and when.
So you can't be ignorant anymore.
Most people aren't.
Okay.
I have quite a high, expectation of people. I don't think they're that stupid.
Yeah, okay. You haven't met me. Quick one. A friend of mine bought a Chinese car. He's a bit of a tinkerer, so he's gone into the communication channels. And he's picking up, there's a hell of a lot of data going out of that car somewhere.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Exactly that. There's a lot of information going out all over the place.
It's a Chinese car. Is somebody in Canberra picking that up, or is that going to Beijing?
It's probably going in that direction, which is the same as...
You can say the word.
Yeah, to Beijing. I mean, now that's not just the case of cars. It's probably the case of your EV charger. It's probably the case of the inverter as well. Anything that's got that data capture requirement or, is grabbing telemetry, it'll be going back and be able to be scrutinized and used for whatever purpose
Intelligence.
God only knows. Yeah.
Maybe there's a little video camera on the front of that car and it kind of maps the whole area and it goes back.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Well,
someone was telling me recently that insurance companies are now asking or using that information. So if you have a crash in your EV, they can grab the telemetry data, look at your driving habits to see whether or not you were potentially driving erratically because you might have been intoxicated or distracted. You might have been on your phone because they can also get that information. Or see who was at fault because they got all that information. They got the telemetry of how you were driving, how fast you were driving, and also got the cameras.
Yeah, but hang on. Why don't we just say you want to sell a car in Australia? Sorry, that shit can't be in it.
Who's going to say that?
The government.
And under what? Okay, they probably could if they get to that point of creating the legislation that's going to allow for that. And that's then when you get into that bureaucracy piece.
I want a car that goes from A to B. I don't want one with 15 cameras that looks at my life. And
I'd be more worried about your phone. How many times have you had it? When you're talking about some random piece of thing that you're thinking of buying, then you go on your phone, you go to Google, and all of a sudden that's all the adverts you're getting.
Yeah. My grandmother passed away. Suddenly I had all these funeral notes.
Yeah,
How did they know that?
yeah. Start thinking about those kind of questions. Where does all that information go?
Do you
And
think there's
all the
a...
metadata from all the photographs you take, all the information about everything that you use on your phone or your laptop or whatever, all that information is valuable. You know, you think of like AI at the moment and how clever AI is. You know, every time you go onto like those captures where you, to prove you're a human, and you've got to look at the images of motorbikes or zebra crossings or whatever, that you're programming AI by doing that. So yeah. So what they actually use, that information that people do that, is actually the mechanism to program, because AI is just an algorithm. It's they say it's a self-learning algorithm, but it's got to be programmed. You've got to program into it to a certain point, then it can start programming itself the responses. In this scenario, do that and recognize this. This is what this is, and that, because they can't think for themselves. Initially, you've got to program it.
But hang on, I've just picked 3 motorbikes. What is AI going to do with that?
Recognize a motorbike. So now when you've got a camera above the traffic lights and something drives up to goes, that's a motorbike.
Ah.
Yeah. That's why. So it's all used for that. So that data is incredibly valuable, because all those captured, that data can then be sold, and that can be used, and it can be used for all sorts of different things.
I can create a drone that hunts down motorbikes.
Yeah, if you wanted to, you can do all sorts of things. The world is your oyster. You just got to get the data.
Gee. My grandmother grew up in a much simpler world.
Yeah. I grew up in a world where you actually wrote letters to people. And I'm of that generation, I think you are as well, where we're unique because we bridge the gap between kind of no technology and this insane technology, where we didn't have mobile phones, we didn't have home computers, we didn't have any of that, where we still did write letters and communicated with people, and you know there was no
Black and white TV.
black and white TVs, yeah, radios that you had to tune yourself, tapes, you know, all those kind of things. It's like records. Do you
I
remember those?
sliced the tapes myself still and stuck
Yeah.
them together with tape.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, exactly. And then we've then experienced the introduction of computers, and then into home computers, and then into mobile phones, and then smartphones, and then where we're at now with AI. And we can kind of appreciate where we're at and the significance of that, and how it's changed how we used to be, and how that's affecting the younger generation, and how there's the breakdown of community, and how we can look at it and go,
No
"This is
attention
good."
to detail, by the way.
No. And how AI, in my opinion, is, and how even all this smart technology is actually dumbing down the population, because you haven't got to think for yourself, because it's done for you. I remember if I was going to drive around London, I'd get an A to Z book and I'd look at it and I'd memorize the route and I'd work it out and I'd remember road names and I'd remember the route. Now you get into a car and you just go, I'm going there, and it does it for you. Half the cars now you can get into a car and it drive you. See what I mean? It's like, how is that developing people's brains and their memories and their ability to think and think laterally and problem solve and work things out? It's doing completely the opposite. It's actually this process of dumbing down the population. It's really scary, actually. And then that information, where that's going to and being used for what reasons and by who, and it's just this sort of almost like we're a victim of our own success. Mm-hmm. I don't know where I'm going to with this, but I just think it's really fascinating.
It was so fascinating, I kind of forgot the next question. Yeah.
You've got to be careful what you ask me, because I can just go off at all sorts of different tangents.
Is this kind of like a Karen moment where you kind of just rave on as a boomer, being frustrated that young
I'm not
people...
frustrated, and I just find it fascinating. It's interesting where we're in this transition, this massive paradoxical transition of who we are as humans, and what we're doing and why we're doing it and where we're going as a race and as a society and as a kind of, you know, conscious beings, and looking at our future and what level of choice and freedoms we'll actually have, and why we will do the things we do. You know, it's an interesting time to be alive, kind of quite scary at the same time, because we're also now suffering the consequences of, you know, hundreds of years worth of, you know, post-industrial revolution harm to the planet. But for me, that's why I want to be in the renewables industry, to really try to be able to address what I can, have the power over what I can, which is to try to, address the issues of climate change and the proliferation of CO2 in the atmosphere, etc. The other stuff, AI, and I can't really do much about. And I'd love to still write letters and have a phone that I dial like that.
Wow.